So what made you interested in history and teaching history?
I think I've always been interested in history, mainly because my dad never stopped talking about history, and he's kind of obsessed with it. And that led to just an overall interest in American history. I also, was out of college and not really doing a lot, kind of working temp jobs and not sure what I wanted to do with my life when 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, that really made me think a lot about the American place in the world, and it just kind of opened up a whole lot of thoughts for me in terms of what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to think about American history as part of my life. And so graduate school was both an economic option and a way of like surviving in a bad economy, but also ended up giving me a real kind of attachment to American history as a kind of way to understand what's going on in the world right now.
Lisa's second question, how has your knowledge of history impacted your life in any way?
I think it's hard not to think about, once you start thinking about the story of especially this country, but the story of all humanity, it's hard not to think about that all the time. So for instance, like I was saying today, when I walk through Brooklyn and I see the Chinatown that I walk through, I kind of like associate that with a period of Chinese immigration, and like it like gives me a whole other, like, I guess, understanding of the context of everyday life.
Well, this is a question coming from one of our members, Stevie. She just wants to know, like, your tattoos, like, what's up with all the tattoos?
The tattoos are in a way, I guess, I won't go through all of them, but they're like a statement for me of a lot of principles of American history that I've thought about, and history itself. The buffalo being a good example, because the buffalo has so much kind of iconic power as both symbolizing the freedom of the American West, but also at the same time the genocide of the Native Americans. And so it kind of embeds the paradox of America for me. It kind of writes that onto my skin. That's an important thing for me. And so it helps me remember what I think is important about the story of the country and where we are as a society, where we are as humans right now on the planet.
So it's like expressing your thoughts and feelings on like American society.
Yeah. It helps clarify kind of how I think about history. That makes sense.
You got a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
Is that like?
I have a train tracks over here. A lot of it has to do with the settlement of the West, because I'm from California. Like, the West is a big part of like who I am, and it's kind of a weird thing to think about, for me at least, because the fact that ancestors of mine, marched across this country in a way that embodied all the hopes of what America could be, but at the same time, they were marching across this country and destroying the natural environment and destroying the people that already lived there. And so it's a really hard thing to think of that as your kind of larger history. Is both, it's got like great aspects to it, and it's got really horrific aspects to it. And I think that like being able to hold both of those possibilities inside you at the same time without kind of favoring one or the other is kind of what makes you a more well-rounded person to understand that history.
Do you have any advice for the class of 2015?
That's a good question. I don't know. In terms of general advice, not really. I mean, like, for me, education is still really, really important. As education, and particularly public education, continues to be assaulted as an idea, I think it's really, like, the idea of just learning for learning's sake is really important. I teach at Brute College, which is a college that's very much focused on business and focused on, like, getting a particular career out of college. And I think that's a really important function of college. I mean, it was for me, too. Like, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to make money when I get out of college? But at the same time, I think there needs to be more of a kind of understanding, not only at Baruch, but everywhere, that like learning for learning's sake and learning to like become a more well-rounded and caring, connected individual and human being is like an important thing in and of itself. And I know that like you don't necessarily make money off of that, but if we could understand that that's just as valuable, if not more valuable, creating people like that, then I think that that's the advice that I give for young people, is to kind of pay attention to both sides of who you're becoming.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.